Hello and good morning, Han. Thank you for joining me this morning. And for all of you watching, this is Hannah Purslow, otherwise known as Han, who is an HRBP for a global organisation. And I've had the pleasure of working with Han for a number of years now. So I am delighted that you agreed to join me and discuss sort of interview preparation, and today specifically relating to competency style interviews, which is obviously something that you do within the organisation you work for, and so many other companies do use competency style interviews, and it's something some people have done and they embrace and they understand, but we can always do with extra preparation and sort of insight to it, and particularly from your side as in HR doing recruitment, what it is. So could you explain to us what a competency style interview is to start with? That would be great, just to enlighten us to what one actually is and what it's all about.
Yeah, of course. So firstly, thanks for having me, Sarah. Obviously, I love catching up with you, and we do it quite a lot. So it's nice to get together for one of your sort of YouTube sessions and sort of get some more information out there around competency-based interviews from a HR perspective. So yeah, I guess what is a competency-based style interview? It's really around where we think around key skills that people need in the workplace and key competencies. And it's kind of drawing out those examples from people. So just to get a little bit more understanding of how their mindset is from a work perspective, the sort of things we look for with people, the sort of values we have as a company, we tend to tie in questions around that, just to get a feel for where people are at in their careers in certain areas, and how they apply that thinking to a work-related situation. So I think sometimes you give people the heads up, there will be competency style based questions, and it feels a little bit intense for people, and they're like, oh God, it's a bit of a setback, it's not just an informal chat kind of thing. But I think people should really start to see it as an informal chat still, because it is just talking about your experience, your understanding. I think it's just the style in which we ask the questions that can sometimes throw people off a little bit. But I think the best thing for people to think is, okay, what have I done? What can I do to add value? And how do situations I've been through add to what I can bring to this company, basically? That's the kind of thing I would say for people when it comes to competency style questions. Yeah,
because that's the STAR technique, I think, that you use, and other businesses that I work with use as well. And the STAR stands for situation, task, activity, and result, doesn't it? So it gives you a concept of where that situation is and what the resulting action is from your activity. And I would imagine you're looking for a positive result there, rather than going, actually, well, I had this situation in customer service, and this person got really angry and we lost loads of business as a result. That's not the ideal answer.
No, exactly. But at the same time, people do have answers like that to describe a situation. And what is also really good on the flip side of that is to maybe hear where something didn't go so right, but maybe how they would do it differently in the future to avoid that. And sometimes we will ask questions around that as well, So I don't know, talk me through a time when you've experienced some negative feedback from a customer, and how have you handled that, and how did it make you feel, that sort of thing, just so you can really delve a little bit deeper into that person's mindset and how they approach difficult situations in a workplace.
Yes, it's really getting people to expand, isn't it, rather than just saying I am good at customer service. Well, because I am, but how can you demonstrate that level of customer service, and giving a real-time scenario.
Absolutely. And I would also say there's kind of like topics around competency style questions. So main points I would think around is like analytical thinking. How do they think a little bit differently to get around problems maybe, or recommend solutions? The other part would be something like contributing to team success. That's always a big one for us in the departments that we have at my organisation. There's also things, communication's huge, especially as you know, Sarah, where we are with language speakers and things like that. So how do they communicate effectively with different levels of the business, regardless of your position? It'll be questions like that we like to get out of people and see sort of, where they're at and how they feel they they perform in those areas. There's things like information seeking. So, you know, how would they go about finding out information in an area that's maybe not always their responsibility, but if they were covering for somebody. So just those sort of things to get you outside the box a little bit. And sometimes we'll also touch on things like influencing. So what impression do they try to convey of themselves? And is that their natural style? And how would they go about adapting that if they needed to? So it obviously always depends on the role that's being interviewed for, to what sort of competency-based questions will be asked. But I'd say they always have those sort of headers around, team success, communication, building relationships, managing difficult situations, that sort of thing.
So how would you suggest somebody would actually prepare if somebody's not had a competency style interview before? And as you say, it is about that sort of demonstrating, but you know, over my years in recruitment, I mean, crikey, I've been in recruitment 33 years now, and there are some people out there that I mean, you can work hard to extract information, but we all operate in different ways, and we all think differently based on our own internal landscape and our experiences to date, etc.
Yeah.
So you may have somebody who is perhaps a little bit more introverted, who's got great skills and abilities,
absolutely,
but maybe not the greatest verbal communicator. I'm not saying that is the true for all introverts, because you get sort of outgoing introverts as well. But I'm just using that as this example, whereby somebody may be a bit quieter and a little bit more reluctant to sort of share that. But
and open up on the spot, maybe.
Yeah, because you know, you can feel a little bit people that may be feeling a little bit intimidated by those questions because of the lack of confidence within themselves. But it is important because we are all unique, we are all different, and I think that's the beauty of all of us, that we have all these different talents and skills, whether we're introvert, extrovert. You know, an introvert, for example, you know, processes information and comes up with more value than probably somebody than I can do, because I'm out there going rah, but I'm not
and then you're like
digesting the same information as an introvert would do.
So I guess in terms of preparing for these sort of questions, and I think they are common a lot across masses of companies these days for them to interview in this sort of style. In terms of preparing, I would say look at your CV for starters, and maybe make notes against that for yourself. Now, I know that sounds probably a little bit strange, but at the end of the day, the recruiter, the hiring manager, the HR department, we've seen your CV, and this is why we're coming back and saying, okay, let's have an interview with this person more often than not. And I think sometimes if you can see what you've got on there and just think to yourself around some of the key headers like I've mentioned, so communication, team success and collaboration, analytical thinking. And then I'd say against sort of the tasks they've outlined and the jobs they've outlined on their CV, just make some notes against that. Okay, so how did I add value to team success in that role? How did I collaborate? How did I communicate in that job? Did I have any difficult situations in that role that I could highlight because I overcame it in a positive way? That sort of thing. And just make sort of bullet point notes on that stand out to you, almost buzzwords maybe. You don't need to script yourself, but it's just so that when you get asked those questions, you can look and go, okay, in that role, I had this situation, and just little things like that. And I think it's important to take that time to prepare, because it will come across in the interview. Obviously, we do have those little stars sometimes that come through, don't need to prepare. They know what they're doing. They know what they need to say. But absolutely, like we discussed, when you have more introverted characters, or you know, how we are in my organisation when we recruit for language speakers who maybe aren't native English and the interview is going to be in English, taking that time to prepare shows a lot to the people interviewing you, that you're taking the practice and the time to put into your interview, and that you're keen, and it shows that you're ready for this sort of role. But also it's good for yourself, because then it takes away some of those nerves, I think, and you feel a little bit more confident going into it. I would also say that another good way to prepare is, whether they're coming through from an agency like yourself or they're coming through directly to an organisation, reach out and ask the question, what sort of style questions am I going to be asked? Are there any specific headers around competencies that I could have a think about before to best prepare myself? I feel like whenever I've received questions like that, I'm like, oh, this is a good one. I like this. That sort of thing, I feel like no question is a stupid question. So when you're going into an interview, you want to put yourself forward in the best light you possibly can. And a way to get to that point is to prepare yourself. We've all been there, and we've probably done interviews where we haven't prepared, or meetings where you haven't prepared, and when you have, and you can feel that difference. Absolutely. So that would be my advice. jot down some notes, give yourself some examples ready of things that have happened to you during your career and working life. And that doesn't always need to be at your most recent role. And I would also say, even if you've been in a recent position where you don't feel you can open up to competency-based questions as much, maybe because of the nature of the role, bring in some personal aspects from other parts of your life as well. So it doesn't always need to be work related. And I think transferable skills are a massive bonus. So if you can see someone's got a certain mindset in one area, whether it's in something they do in a personal life or something they did 10 years ago, but that's something they're still carrying through day to day, that's great to see as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that's important to point out, particularly for people, excuse me, who've been perhaps at university or coming first out of education, and they're faced with this, you know, or they've maybe been out to work for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. But it's drawing on sort of personal experiences where you can demonstrate those competencies for sure. So how do you then sort of, from your perspective, oh, actually, before I go on to that, I'm just reminded myself, one thing I was going to say was, with all that preparation, you could also future pace and see yourself in front of that person who is doing the interview, see yourself going to the interview, and actually see yourself in that scenario, see yourself in that situation, answering those questions. So you've actually already been there and done it in your own mind.
Definitely.
So that when you actually get there, you've already done it, and you can tweak it as well.
Absolutely.
There's
and practice with people, you know, partners, family, kids, whoever. Give them a sheet of questions and say, fire these at me. I just want to practice how I would answer these, you know, why not?
Especially have a bit of fun with it.
Yeah, have some fun with it.
Yeah, exactly. And the more you
relax
about it, the better it is, because that comes across, of course, when you interviewed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess in the methods that we're using in the world that we're working in now, you know, via, you know, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Skype, that sort of thing, trial it with your friends, family. You know, if you're not used to using these platforms, it is very different, and it's not the same as being in person with people. Some people enjoy it, some people don't. It has its ups and downs, but practice that just so you can feel your best self when you're putting yourself across to the employer.
Absolutely. Some great advice there, and some great tips and some great insight. Thank you very much. And just to sort of wrap up on the competency style interview, is that, with using that as a tool, as a technique through the interview process, do you base, or is it something that you base a huge amount of your decision making on when you are using that type of questioning?
I think it can do it. It can do at times. Again, I think it really depends on the role and sometimes the seniority of the role as well. So obviously, if we're looking for someone coming into a senior management position and we're expecting to have quite a wealth of experience behind that, then yeah, we might base a little bit more around those competency-based questions. But at the same time, it's not everything. We're just trying to get a little bit more out of the individuals and the candidates to understand, what do they know? And what if they were the right person, what do we need to provide them with to get them better in those areas and things like that. So I would say it's a lot about your approach and, you know, how you present yourself. So in a professional manner, good communication is key all the time, aside from competencies anyway. So just making sure that you can clearly express what you need to in the right way. But yeah, I think it plays a part in it, but it's not everything all the time. And especially when we think, like we said, when you're talking of people who are entering into their first career and that world of work, this is all things that they might actually get their competency style answers from our role, you know, when they move on to their next one. So it definitely plays a part, but it's not everything.
No, but you've just given us some important insight there, is that it helps you as an employer identify areas where that person that you decide that you go ahead with gives you some indicators as to how you can, you know, you can improve them with training and development as you bring them on board within the company. So that's definitely. It's not just used as a tool to make that decision at that interview stage. No. It helps you with the development further down the line as well.
And it helps in terms of placing that person sometimes, depending on what sort of recruitment you're managing. Maybe you've got a few roles on and you're doing a bit of an assessment centre or something. If someone's applied for a team leader role, but actually you've got a project team leader role as well, and you interview that person, and following on from the competency-based questions, you realise actually from a people perspective, they're maybe not the strongest, but from a project data systems perspective, they absolutely will smash it. You can kind of help to align them to different areas and priorities that you've got going on in the business as well. So, and you can also think about future needs if maybe they're not right at the moment. So I think it is important that absolutely people prepare and they have the sort of competency style answers as best they can. But yeah, it's kind of for them to help us to understand more about themselves, and also for us to say, okay, yeah, like you say, will they fit here? Will they fit here? What do we need to have in place for development as well? Because that's always a big thing, I think, when you think of retaining talent.
Exactly. So in summary then, really, a competency-based interview is about demonstrating, key competencies that are in line with the role that you're being recruited for.
Yeah.
And, don't hold back if you want to ask more information prior to your interview, but equally so, prepare. Preparation is absolutely key. Get your head into it, understand it, have a play around with it, and see it as part of the process that's going to help, if you are then employed, then the company actually develop you as a person. So it's just another tool, isn't it? It's just another technique, and it's just take that stigma and that sort of away from it. It's just a way of demonstrating your experience. So.
Exactly. It's giving us examples of what you've done previously, basically, in a nutshell. And I think if people start to think of it in that way a little bit, it's a bit easier. And just think about, looking back on your CV and making those notes. I think that'll help massively.
Which is a really good point to reaffirm. So thank you so much for sharing your insight and your wisdom and your humour, as always, Hannah. Pleasure. Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome.
First of several videos. So so we'll talk on and touch on some other subjects moving forward. But
look forward to it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sarah.